Hello guys, welcome to the Trading Parrot. This is gonna be a big update on Ethereum, a dedicated video where we look into liquidation levels, levels of support and resistance, news, on-chain data, everything that you need to know about Ethereum in just about 10 to 15 minutes. You're not gonna find as condensed information about Ethereum anywhere else. Let's start with the weekly, and I'm gonna start with the RSI weekly because there is some important element in here going on at the moment. Remember in my past video about Ethereum, we were focusing on this bullish pennant in here, calling it potentially to turn into a bull flag. Ethereum broke out from this resistance that spans from March 2024, putting lower highs and lower lows, and it broke out in June this year. We have had already an intensive move into an RSI of 74, and I was looking for this to break out and put another impulsive wave into potentially RSIs of 86. Since we are in this area and we have broken down there is some potential for downside. But if from these levels we were able to pull in a revenge rally into an RSI, let's say of 74, which is a lot more realistic than now thinking about the 86. Believe it or not, but that 74 RSI is located more or less at $6.5 thousand price for Ethereum. Now, if we go on the low end and we do a painful retest of the breakout at RSIs around 45, 46, that can bring Ethereum back into 3.2K. Let me show you the levels using the reverse RSI. That RSI of 45 corresponds with the price of 3.232K, and the 74, that revenge rally, could bring in a Ethereum price of 6.541K. Now, Ethereum has done a lot, right? Because we already pierced the previous resistance, turning it into support. So this should constitute as the retest, but unfortunately the bull flag is kind of misbehaving. On the weekly we already closed kind of below it at 57, and we start this week already puking even lower, and that's the main reason I'm keeping an eye for the RSI hitting 45 on the weekly and potentially seeing the 3.2K once again. The longs have already been decimated. The areas where they used to bounce, those areas of value, were challenged, and we went one level down in the ladder into the first percentile in here at 32. That is coming from 67% people being long, mostly an area visit at the highs, and now being at 31, which is a level that we haven't seen since October 2023. Now, what happened at those levels of 32 of longs? That's where we started the move into from 1.5K into 4K. That's a huge move of over 2x that we started from longs versus shorts around the 30 in a bull market. So there is opportunity to the upside, truly, but we cannot neglect the risk currently. So we'll focus on that risk. We'll see really how it looks like on the daily time frame as well, based on liquidation pools, and we'll see how deteriorated at the moment things are looking on-chain perspective. Let's focus on the daily now and on liquidity pools. I want you to focus on these descending channels on Ethereum, because Ethereum is a big, huge fan of really getting everybody decimated, and not just by putting the price lower, but also taking so long to do these things. You put triple top here, you pump, and then again lower lows and lower lows, and this area in here is also really painful to be there holding to that long. So now that we are challenging, re-entering below the 4K that was triple top, that for me is an opportunity at the very least. I say it 1,000 times. Below 4K is an area to accumulate into 3.5. Now we're gonna bring the 3.2. Let's see how realistic is that in case we fill the vacuum around here before we shoot back up. Why do I think about the chances of doing this instead of just going straight out? Because you can see Ethereum can be in an area like this, in an area like this, or in an area like this, push to the top, and still then the momentum put a lower low on the daily, and that is where it hurts, guys. So that risk is not certain, but it needs to be acknowledged. And if we really re-enter below 4K and we start putting weekly closes around there, we could be seeing this trend line coming in as support, which is 3.3, depending on the speed. Of course, if we do it too fast, we could see 3.2 and still meet with that line. If we pierce below it, there is an interesting level of liquidation, which is the 3K. That is the largest on the downside. So take note of that. That is the biggest risk that we currently have. Since we already pinched 3.4, going any lower, we are talking about 33, 32, 31, and the biggest is 3. Now, let's focus on Fibonacci levels because I had to move this from there into here to see where is now sitting the extension of 1 on Fibonacci, and that's precisely in the middle of the two largest liquidations on the top end. Let's focus on them. They're located at 5K followed by 5.1. That is the risk of the shorts primarily, but you could argue that there's still 5.3 and 5.6, and the golden pocket spans into 6K, which means that if you liquidate pretty much every short in the horizon, that is kind of the reward if this thing starts shooting straight up from here. But looking back in time, even in the bull market, we get so oftenly at a size on the daily at around 20, then 24, recently at 30. So this is increasing. What if we meet with that again? That will bring an RSI of 30. So potentially that can bring Ethereum back again in here. And considering that I missed out on the entry at 3.5 because I was in the stupid hospital and not being able to take that position, well, maybe I get a second chance to add around this area. So I am keeping an eye on that. I only have a position at 3.8, but it's so small that I don't even care about it. Let's look into on-chain because not everything is in the green at the moment in on-chain. We have big well orders on spot. I respect that. It's spot and it's big wells, but futures is very heavy at the moment in Ethereum, dominated by retail orders. Small dudes aiming very high, too early maybe, and futures taker CBD has been dominated on the seller side as well. That means that they are selling very aggressively with panic, and that also on spot. So you got futures and spot with CBD dominating and wells taking advantage of the situation, possibly on spot accumulating. So I think the right play for me is to see if I can get the chance to enter between 3.3 and 3K on spot at the risk of entering a bear market and ending up holding that up until 2K or lower. When it comes to news, what do we have? We have a 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, and 7 out of 10. All of them are currently bullish. So let's see what it's all about. BlackRock's 48.6 million Ethereum deposit to Coinbase Prime. Large institutional movement into ETH suggests a deepening institutional. I am not sure that AI is getting this right. So let's open the news. So yes, it's actually a bullish article and it could turn into a potential catalyst for higher prices. Ethereum hits 4K as record transactions volume signals strong network demand. That is from the 20th of October. Bitcoin trades at 110. Well, this is a little bit old, and 4K for Ethereum, which has already corrected partially. Right now, Bitcoin is sitting around 108. Maybe rebound helps altcoins like Ethereum, while broader, it still supports Ethereum by improving risk appetite. My worry is how many retail this is attracting in futures, which puts a lot of pressure for market maker to liquidate them before we can hit 6.5K. That is kind of the risk. Ethereum relative to the rest of the market, you can see is located around here, next to LTC, XLM, SUI, ETC, Wild. All of them are in this quarter, which means that there is more well positioning relative to retail compared to everything that is on the left-hand side relative to Ethereum. Everything that is on the right-hand side of Ethereum has more wells positioned. And looking at the bid-ask ratio, which is the y-axis, it's saying that currently Ethereum doesn't have a lot of support between 0 to 5% deviation of the price. There is more ask liquidity at the moment on the upper end, turning into resistance on Ethereum. The biggest liquidation pool on Ethereum at the moment on the past 30 days is located at 4.4K, and you can see that those levels affecting the shorts are below 3.3 into 3.290. That is on the past 3 months. So the big question in here is whether we're gonna shoot back up to take all the liquidity that we left on the upper end, or if first we need to take this. Personally, I like the idea of just holding to my 3.8 and then adding and averaging down if we we manage to put a new low in here. If not, I just stick around with the 3.8. Ethereum against Bitcoin has been rejected at 0.04, which is an historical level that corrects into 0.03. Let's say we go there and we shoot from there into the highs like we did in the past cycle. This is an idea that is supported by everybody that thinks that there's still a lot of lemon juice to squeeze out of this cycle, because in order to do that, you need to wait for this guy to come back down and then start shooting back up and trying to mimic that move there. Maybe I did it too slow. It's something like this, right? So you get that peak around February 2026. That is the time that you have if you really want to do this. This happened in April in 2021. So we are pretty late if you consider that this is happening almost a year after in the cycle. It should have happened in April 2025. So where we were here in April 2025, 4 years before, Ethereum was completely the opposite at 0.08 against Bitcoin. So everything is kind of upside down at the moment. The Z-score hit the highs of 3 deviation away from the median, and that happened when Ethereum was reaching 4.9. Of course, Papi Chulo was selling at that point Ethereum. Now it's coming into the median. The MFI also hit the highs, the RSI as well, and you know your signals, you know when to sell. So for Ethereum, we have a mixed bag at the moment. There is an opportunity that from here we could hold the 4K, turn it into support, and use the remaining part of October and November, which according to seasonality is typically bullish, to go straight for 5K. From that end, I already have a small position from 3.8 that I'm willing to risk to see if we can get that soon and go for this arrow in here after the double bottom early at around 30. If we happen to go below 30s once again in here and pinch or hold that support, the global support on the daily of 28, we could stay around here for a little bit longer and break out a little bit later, December or January, in which case I might get the chance to take a bit more in between 3.3 to 3.2 and use it as another area to hit into the 5-6Ks on the upper end later in the cycle. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, write down what is missing, what points were really good and I should keep for ongoing videos in the future, and what other coins I should cover as well in this channel with these in-depth videos. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Oh, by the way, don't forget there is the 3,000 that you can claim on Bluffing if you open a new account. Pretty much any deposit gives you some rewards, so have a look at the link in the description. Now, go. Bye.